Just a little bit about analytic versus empirical factual statements. Essentially, either one of these, and what we're really trying to get at is we're looking at facts. Factual statements are statements in which you can determine whether or not the statement is true or false. And you can determine it's true or false in one of two ways, either via observation, which would be empirical, and observation is generally anything that comes from your senses. I mean, it can be touch, it could be taste, it could be, smell, sound, etc. But it can be determined. For example, if it can be things like, it's blue, or which would be a very easy sight one, or you can measure it. Also, empirical can also go into things like measurements and other sorts of tests that allow you to basically physically look at it. And analytic, on the other hand, comes basically prior to observation or experience. You don't have to experience it or anything. It's a priori. Anything that is axiomatic, mathematics, definitions, things of that nature are typically considered analytic because you don't have to observe it to know that 2 + 2 = 4. That's just a truth that we've set forth that we know is true, and different rules of mathematics. All of that is analytic in nature. And so the reason we're doing this is basically to sort of distinguish and sort of think about the way that things are factual, the way that you can determine the truth or falsity, and recognize the difference. Now, there's one other type of factual statement that's empirical in nature, and that is that future-oriented observation is technically empirical. It's an empirical fact. For example, if I said, well, if we remove the bridge, then it's going to take this much time to get to the office. If we do this, it's going to require that. If we remodel the kitchen, we'll be unable to use a kitchen for 3 weeks while that's being done. And while sometimes those future-oriented things are somewhat value-laden, or they require somewhat of a value or some sort of an interpretation of the facts, a lot of times those are in fact factual, because even though they haven't occurred, they are making statements that are either true or false about what will occur in the future. And so, just as sort of a side note, future-oriented observation is in fact can be a factual statement as well.